All right, so I will now call to order the July 13, 2026 Park Rose School Board Organizational Meeting at 6:02 p.m. Uh, any volunteers to read the land acknowledgement? If not, I'm more than happy to read it. All right, I'll go ahead and do that. So, truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connections across differences. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. The Park Rose Board of Education begins this effort by acknowledging that we are gathering on the ancestral and unceded lands of the Chinook, Multnomah, Caslamet, Clackamas, Cowlitz, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Molala, and many other tribes who have made their homes along the Columbia River in the Portland area. We pay respect to their elders past and present. We acknowledge them as the past, current, and future caretakers of this land. All right, so we will move to approving the agenda. So, do I hear a motion to approve or amend tonight's meeting agenda?
I motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda.
I second.
All righty, any discussion? All those in favor of approving tonight's meeting agenda, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Public comment procedure. So if you wish to submit a public comment online before or during this board meeting, please follow the link to the electronic public comment before reading of public comments on the agenda. All right, let's move into our action items. So starting with electing the 2026-2027 school year chair of the Park Rose Board of Education. So do I hear a nomination to appoint for the position of chair?
I move to appoint Paul Tebron Jr. as chair.
I second.
I have to accept, correct? I accept.
Any discussion?
Is there any discussion regarding the matter? All right, so do we vote? Should we vote, make the motion now or after we do vice chair?
Yeah, Joash made the motion and
I
Brenda
mean, sorry.
seconded. So yeah, you can vote now.
All right. So all those in favor of electing Paul Tabron Jr. as the 2026-2027 chair of the Park Rose Board of Education, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. All right. So next will be to elect the 2026-2027 vice chair of the Park Rose Board of Education. Do I hear a nomination to appoint for the position of vice chair?
Well, I'm not going to nominate myself. So,
Yeah.
and I express that I do not want to be vice chair this year. So I don't know if we need discussion before that.
I would like to nominate Joash for vice chair if he is willing.
Does he have to say if he's willing, or is that after a second?
Yeah, so would that be after a second or this?
I mean, you could make the motion and appoint him, but then he would have to say,
Accepted.
then he would have to accept it. So, or we could just not make the motion if he's not interested.
Uh, uh, if nominated, then I would accept. Yes.
Cool.
So I move to nominate Joash Bullock as vice chair.
I'll second.
Cool. All right. Any discussion? All right. With that being said, all those in favor of moving to approve Joash Bullock as the 2026-2027 Vice Chair of the Park Rose Board of Education, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Where's my reactions? I was gonna clap, but I'll just. Congratulations. All right. So, ooh. So next we will have an introduction of consent agenda items by our CFO, Cherie Lewis.
Good evening, everybody. How are you doing?
What it?
Congratulations on your new or existing roles. I changed some things around this year. You'll see resolution, basically 6, 7, and 8 are new. 6 and 7 are new, 8 is an existing. But change those around where they're not listed separately. Resolution 1 is the same thing, designate the state of Oregon as basically our local government investment pool in the U.S. Bank. And we have to approve that through a resolution to show who are banking institutions. So LGIP is where most of our money, property taxes come in. And let's say construction excise tax, those come in there. And then we move those in those 4 different accounts. We'll move them over into our main checking, which is the U.S. Bank. And I keep roughly about $1 million, if necessary, into the checking account, but I keep most of it in the LGIP. So this resolution is designating that we have to have basically those 2 designations. Any questions on that? Nope. The second one, basically is our petty cash. Now, we don't have a lot of petty cash that we use. The biggest entity that uses the petty cash is transportation, because every day that a driver goes out, basically, if they do a route and they buy their dinner at the end of the evening, they'll get reimbursed for those meals as long as they come back with a reimbursable receipt that's itemized, and they'll get reimbursed for their meals, but no more than the IRS limit, and they're subject to what they can do on their tips. The other entities pretty much don't have a lot of petty cash anymore because we've moved all of the money transactions into the district office. So they don't really need a lot of petty cash at this time. But we do have the capability to give it to them if we need to at any one given time. And if we do, it's usually a petty cash based on, let's say, the book fair. If somebody wanted to come in and buy something for the book fair, and then they'd have some cash to move things back and forth. Any questions on petty cash? The other thing on petty cash, at the end of the year, they're supposed to close those out. Sometimes they may forget it, but those will get closed out and they're actually part of the cash balance at the end of the year. So we have to make sure and we reconcile the petty cash all the time. The next resolution, number 3, is applying to the superintendent, allowing us to designate and apply for federal, state, and local funds, which is like grants, like let's say Title I grants, IDEA grants, which is special education, pre-K grants that either through the state or through the local entity, or if we have, let's say, another private grant, somebody wants to donate some money, like PISA, or they want to do PEF, the Education Foundation. That gives the superintendent and myself the ability to apply for those funds and use them as so in what's designated in the resolution. Any questions on those? No. Any other questions? The next one has to do with the contracting authority that gives us the basically who's signing and can we go out for contracts. If we exceed let's say a threshold of 250, we typically bring those to the board, but very seldom do we do that. You had a few the other day when we were going out and I was asking for exception, not necessarily sole source, but CGMC. And those are the things about contracting that we bring to the board. Typically, what we do is quotes because we don't usually do a lot of contract exceeding the $250,000 threshold unless they're capital and related, which we had. Let's say the bleachers was about 400,000, and then we had the outside repairs of the high school, which is just under 400,000. So, but we also brought those to the board, and we try to make sure that we use equity and inclusion when we look at contractors for the district. Any questions on those? No. All right. Resolution authorized the lending of the general fund monies to federal, state, or other programs. That's basically saying where we have the ability to go out for the dollars. We also have the ability to commingle funds in between the general and state if we have to share those funds. That's giving us, the district, the ability to use those funds intermittently in between the federal, state, or local and the general fund. Because we may have to supplement the funds if there was a matching need or so forth. Any questions on that? Nope. This is a new one, resolution number 6. In the contract for the classified union, there's an article 22.3 that has to deal with basically essential employees classification, and then has to be calling out for, let's say, winter storms or emergency. Let's say I have a snow day and I need to clear basically the parking lot and I need to clear the sidewalks, but the only people here are Robin and I. This gives me the ability in the contract to basically describe who the superintendent and the job description are considering essential employees. Typically, it's going to be the maintenance staff, right? I have 2 technicians that are maintenance. I have a landscaping lead. I have custodians. I have an HVAC, and those people will be considered essential. And I can call them in on the weekend. Let's say we've had a lot of snow for the last Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but it shows clearing on Monday. I can call them in on Sunday and be able to say, you're an essential employee, and call you in. So, but they wanted to define those in a period that was in their job description and that the superintendent was designating every year. So now this resolution will be going forth in every year saying these are the employees that are designated essential. Robin and myself, we're already 260 or 240-day employees. It's part of our job to make sure we manage the district. So we come in anyways. But the last couple of years, it's been just Robin and I cleaning the streets because it was hard for us to get employees to come in because it was saying if they were available. Now that means we get to designate it and then we say that they can come in. Anybody have any questions on that? Nobody? All right. And this will be ratified when you get once we get to closer to the classified CBA being ratified, you'll be able to see the final wording of this when the CBA comes to the board and you guys approve the classified unit. But we're in the middle of bargaining at this time. We're not at a point to ratify it at any time soon. Okay. This was a new resolution that we created that basically took the top 10 or 15 items that Andrea had and the resolution are in the agenda before and made it just one resolution to make it easier, right? Designating that I'm basically the chief financial and the business officer, designating the superintendent as superintendent and all the people able to deal with the funds, which is Jeannie Morgan, who's the accounting supervisor, Elizabeth Young, who's the senior accountant, and myself and the superintendent. Designate Myers and Stevens as a student accident. Now they're designated as a student accident, but right now they have priced themselves out of parents paying for it. So we're in limbo right now. They're the agency. They want the district to buy the student accident insurance, but the district will not be buying student accident insurance. That has to be purchased by the parents, right? But they're still our student accident insurance agency that we use, but we are not buying it. It's something that the parents would have to purchase on themselves if their students were participating in athletics or anything that they felt that they needed insurance for. Okay, this is another one. American Fidelity basically is our section, our IRS section 125. We call that the flex plan, or basically where you can set money aside pre-tax to help you pay for things like, let's say, your premium, your deductible that you had to have, or help you pay for, like mine is the amount of medication I had to pay for, or when I had my surgery, when my insurance didn't pay all the bill, then I could use my flex account. It's a pre-tax flex account or IRS section 125. And we use American Fidelity for that. Again, similar to the other resolution, the U.S. Bank as a depository of the district funds. That's where majority of money, when we pay any bill, it comes out of the U.S. Bank. Doesn't come out of LGIP. We transfer money out of LGIP into the U.S. Bank to pay bills on a monthly basis. And as you all know, the Oregonian is our newspaper of record. You have to be able to publish something, basically two places, the Oregonian and the district website, to show that I have a public meeting, right? If I can't do the Oregonian, I would have to send out a U.S. mail to every individual resident in Park Rose. That's way too expensive based on the amount of postage it costs just for one letter. So the Oregonian is our deposit. Now, granted, we just paid $2,800 just to do the public notice for the budget, but it's cheaper than doing the other. Hungerford Law Firm, we don't keep them on retainer, but they are our designated law firm when we have to have an attorney give us an opinion. Majority of the time, if we can, we'll use PACE, because PACE is our insurance agent and they have an attorney that can help us. But if it on things that PACE cannot handle, we have to reach out to Hungerford Law Firm. For example, bargaining issues, our PACE agents do not represent us on anything associated with bargaining. So if we have bargaining questions, we would have to go to Hungerford Law Firm. If we have very specific things associated with special education, we have to go to Hungerford to get those things, because PACE does not represent us on special education issues. Then we designate Brown & Brown as our property and casualty agent of record. Now, most people think of PACE. That's who we buy our insurance from. But we have what we call our broker, Brown & Brown. They broker our insurance through PACE so we can get a better deal. And then we don't have to be the expert on every insurance item that we have. Let's say a trellis on a roof, or let's say, what cement depth do I have? Is it against the law, or what legal limit I have? I can refer to Brown & Brown. They'll get me the answer, and then I don't have to go through PACE that has a lot of levels that I don't necessarily go through. Okay. We have our own insurance for personal insurance, being MOTA or OEBB. That's where all the employees are covered through MOTA, unless they choose to do insurance let's say their spouse has insurance for them, like my wife, then she does not, and her employee represent herself. But an employee could have a husband and wife here both. They both can have motor insurance. They don't have one have it and the other one opt out. Both of them can carry it individually, right? And we do not give a stipend to somebody to opt out for health insurance, like a lot of agencies also do. As of last year, we designated ourselves as a new CPA firm. We used to be Polly Rogers. Now they're called an off-branch Clear Trail CPAs. This will be their second year in existence representing the district. And then the last one, reaffirm the status of the board as the local public contractor review. Those are all the things that fall under. And then basically, here's our calendar in the administrative office and when our board meetings are going to be. Those were all separate items before on the agenda. Now they're all in one main resolution. Anybody have any questions on that? The last one is one we've done for many years. It's called construction excise tax. We have to approve a rate every year, and I have to send it to the taxing authority, right? And this year our rate's going up 3 cents for residential, 1 penny for non-residential, and 600 for non-residential max. This is once this gets approved, I send it to the taxing commission, and then we'll be able to increase our rate for construction excise tax, that we actually receive revenue on a quarterly basis from the taxing agency. Any questions on resolutions 1 through 8? Nope. All right. The other things that are required to submit before the board, the first one is basically nothing you have to do anything, because in January I bring this to you because the rate changes in January. But to make sure it gets to the agenda or somebody didn't miss it, reimbursement rates were $86 for meals and were 72.5 cents for mileage per diem. Okay. Tuition rates, and this very seldom ever happens on tuition rates, and it's based off the state net operating expense report. Our tuition rate for next year is $13,255 per student for the year, right? And it's slightly different for, let's say, the kindergarten, because they only do 157 days. The rest of the students will be doing 166 or 165 days, right? And we take that report right off the state NOE report, and that NOE report was based on 23-24 actual financials, but they increase it by 3.77, which is their CPI, right? So I have to go off what their report is. And in my years, we've never had anybody in the district actually pay this tuition because they wanted to attend the district. But for some odd reason, this district requires us to put together a tuition rate. But in 12 years, I've not had one student yet pay the district to attend the district. All right. The next one we definitely have to do, which is the transportation billing rate. Now, this one's going to look a little wonky to you guys. It's basically increased 8% this year. The reason why I did 8% is because the cost of fuel and the cost of personnel have gone up tremendously. 11%. The cost of outplaced services transportation went up 11.9%. So with those increases, I'm trying to keep up with the standard rate of what it's going to cost for field trips. Now, am I going to get that for outplaced services? But when I have to pay somebody for transportation to drive our students? No. But it's the cost of our employees. A step increase is 4% for our classified step, and a COLA is 3%. And then you add fuel. So when you look at those things, they add up. So that's why instead of a 10 or 11%, I took it 8%. Last year I did a 3 or 4%. But I need to keep somewhat up with the cost of business. So we're going to go for internal rates. That means if the PTA wants to pay for a field trip, it's $38.20 an hour. But if you want to go to an external person that wants to, let's say, pay for the district, then that rate would be $46.89, right? So, and then the fuel rates went up the same 8%. But as you guys have probably figured out, fuel has gone up more than 8%. We're now at $4, and the last time I fueled up was $4.95 a gallon. So it's, the rates are out of the world, and they're not looking to come down anytime soon. Any questions or any concerns about me raising the rate 8% on transportation? No? All right. The next one is basically the substitute rates. And this is required in the state of Oregon for a substitute rate. And to basically, it takes, there's methodology of the substitute rate, which is taking R starting at step B2 of the new contract. And then you have to multiply it by one divided by 1/90th, and then figure it out at 1 day, and then figure it out for any days past 10 days. Okay? So that rate is where we look at that rate, and then we determine on our rate what it would look like, because we outsource our substitutes. We do not hire our substitutes. So by doing that, I have to do a cost analysis, and the rate of increase by using ESS or EMS is 26.5% increase. So the state rate right now is $236.26, right? So I have to add 26.5% onto that rate, and that's what I'm going to pay for a sub from 1 day to the 10th day. So it's $298.87. But if I get past the 10th day, the 11th day, and beyond, I would have to pay $382.80 for every day of a substitute if they have continuous 1 to 10 days, and on the 11th day. If they skip this week, I did 2 days, this next week I did 10 days, right? They have to be a continuous 10 days before you get to that next 11th day. And this is based on the state rate, right? And it's complicated. That's why I put the formula in there that you can see it. And that it looks a little high from where you saw it last year, because our beginning step B2 for the teacher's contract is a lot different than we had B2 last year. Because not only did they get a 3% COLA, they also got a 6% PERS plus the additional 0.98, because now that 6.98% of PERS is added to their salary. So that's why the rate of the substitute teacher looks a lot higher than it normally would, because our B2 step 1 is a lot higher than it was the year before. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Because our last year rate was like $275. Now we're jumping $20, which would be way more than what you would think. And the reason why is because how we changed the teacher contract with a B2 rate is a lot higher than it was the year before. Any questions on that? Mariah?
Yeah. How much do we usually spend in this area? Like,
In substitutes?
yeah.
About 1.5 million.
And are most of those like under the 10 days?
Yes, most
Yeah.
of them are under the 10 days. We have a few, maybe 3 or 4 at any one given time. We may have over the 10, right? Let's say if somebody's out pregnant, right?
Mhm.
If we don't bring them in as a temporary employee, right? Or we may have somebody that's out sick for, let's say, a month because they have surgery, right? I don't want to bring in a full temp. I would hire somebody for a month. Then obviously for the first 10 days, it's a lower rate. Anything after that would be the higher rate. But we don't have that many that we do. Now, we did, when we were during COVID, every school had a full-time temp. Right? Every school had a temp. Right? We stopped that. Not every school has a temp on their resume every day. Right? Because we just don't have enough money for that. But when we had COVID and had ESSER money, we paid and used ESSER dollars to pay for those substitutes for each one of the schools.
Thank you.
All right. So that's substitute rate. The next thing is the fringe rate. Now, this is going to say, Cherie, we already did this during the budget. Well, yes and no. What happens when salary actually settles, I have to go back into PERS and figure out what the blended rate was. Because when I did PERS on the budget, the blended rate was 9.11%. The PERS blended rate now is 9.07%. It went down because we also took 4 days of furlough. So the amount of salary that I was projecting was higher on the initial proposed budget than it was in adopted. Right? The other things that changed was basically our workers' comp rates. We can't get the new workers' comp rate until the end of June when they finalize all our insurance proposals. So on the insurance proposal, you'll notice our total fringe rate that I built the budget on was like 39.48. It's basically, the new rate is 2.04 rate increase. And the majority of that rate increase comes in the workers' comp. And I'll say that the school bus drivers went from 4.27 to 4.73. Right? Just the general employee like me, Andrea, those people that are just directly related to students that are not in heavy construction, they went up from 0.34 to 0.36. When you add all these changes, that's where you get the change. All right? But because the PERS rates themselves did not change, nor did FICA or Social Security. It's the rate in those workers' comp rates that changed. Okay? So our new rate is 41.52. Now, the one thing that you need to understand, and this was what I was dealing with nutrition, that rate, 41%, does not include the cost of insurance for an employer. Most of our employees get full insurance, which is roughly, let's say, $18,000 for an employee. And let's say if you're a $50,000 employee, okay, 18 divided by 50, that's another 36% that would be just insurance. So our fringe rates are extremely high for a reason. PERS, because we pick it up, right? And we have to pay PERS. In most industries, we don't, right? And then because we have a PERS debt, we have to calculate what that would be based on the debt that we have. If I took that 17.14 out of the calculation, it will be a little lower, but it's still not going to change the cost of insurance. Let's say on a $50,000 person, it's 36%. So that's the way of the world in the district and public education and municipalities, how fringe rates are more than 50% of what your overall salary is. Any questions on that? Meal rates, they went up slightly, $2.72. For basically lunch, breakfast is $2.57 and milk didn't increase, it's 50 cents. And we're going into next year, all schools will be free and reduced. That may have to change in the future based on the revenue that we have, because this may even have to change mid-year. If the Trump administration gets their way, we may not be able to afford free and reduced for the entire academic year, because the rate of reimbursement for free and reduced is not keeping up with the cost of our employees. So we may have to change it in the near future, but right now, this is the contract that we have signed with the state of Oregon and with Chartwells. That will be our rates for next year. But they also are contingent about the Trump administration changing nutrition guidelines and what he's willing to reimburse for free and reduced, because there's new guidelines of whether or not somebody is of foreign descent and they're not documented, whether or not they're going to allow them to have free meals. Not proven, it's not verified yet, but it's in the path. That's all I can say. Any questions on that one? Educational options is just something I give you guys so you can understand the cost of what it is to basically pay for a student. And I realize they made it air on middle school cohort. I have an extra 0 in there, so that's my fault. But when you look at, let's say, Columbia Regional, for one kid deaf, hard of hearing, and that's without their one-on-one, it's roughly $139,000 for one kid. And we're only getting $11,250 from the state for that student. Okay. The Creeks, which is our social, emotional, behavior health, it's going to be $115,000. Our MASD functional living skills, those rates are going to be roughly $99,200. It's the last item. You can keep going. Yep. Keep going down. There. And then you look at Wheatley. This is the most expensive cost that we have. Basically $191,000 for one kid. Now, when you're at Wheatley, realize most of Wheatley's kids also have a one-on-one. That's another $70-some thousand. So it's right below where you're at. There you go, $190,000. That's Wheaton. When we talked about kids, when we had kids come in last year that we are roughly $3 million, a lot of those kids were going to Wheaton at that cost, plus a one-on-one of a rough $70,000. So that's a lot for one kid. Then you add about $23,000 to $25,000 a year for transportation for pretty much every one of those kids from Wheaton. Because they're a one-on-one transportation, and we have one kid that's a one-on-one plus an additional person. So they actually have to have another person inside the vehicle for us to be able to transport that child, because they're so aggressive, because they were hitting the driver. So, all right. Other things that are on there, open schools, some of those things, I don't have the new numbers because we don't have the new contracts. We have Rosemary Anderson. Those numbers are the same. And Serendipity, these are the same numbers as last year. And the MESD other services, we have one registered nurse that we have. And then we hire another 0.5 that splits the elementaries. So we have roughly 1.5. One of it's paid with resolution funds, the other paid out of the general fund. A health assistant, a behavior health facilitator. And when you talked about when I needed another one-on-one, that's the $70-some thousand I'm talking about. If I need a speech pathologist, occupational therapist, we have one in the district. But if we need additional, all right, I just realized I put an extra 5 on 26-27-5. I'm sorry. All right. These are extra things. And if you need psychological services and you need basically additional site services, that's $191,000. These are extremely expensive services. And then we have David Douglas that does our early intervening services, that basically our birth to 5 services evaluation. That's about $161,000. These are all things coming out of the special education budget. And right now we have about $1.3 to $1.5 million budget. But we have projected right now well over $3 million in expenses before we even start the academic year for 26-27 in September. So we already know that we're over budget in special education. But because over the years people have wanted to know what those costs are, we try to give these so you understand. if you're out in the public and somebody you want to know how much it costs to, let's say a kid at Wheatland, and you know what the costs are. Those don't fluctuate a lot during the year. It's during the beginning of the year when we're negotiating with them. Okay, so basically that is all the rates and the resolutions I have. And then we have the license contracts, and that would be Mary, or is that just a consent item?
Just a consent item.
Okay.
All righty. Thank you. Um, well, it looks like we have a extensive list of consent agenda items.
Sorry about that, guys.
Oh, no apologies necessary at all. So with that being said, are there any amendments that anyone would like to make?
No.
Alrighty. Well, with that being said, we will go ahead and move. Do I hear a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda items?
I motion to approve tonight's consent agenda items.
There a second?
I second it.
Any discussion? With that being said, all those in favor of approving tonight's consent agenda items, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion is approved.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Was that Adolfo with the second?
Him and Joash said it, but I don't know who was first.
Okay, I'm gonna write down Adolfo.
All righty. All right, so next we have a land acknowledgement review presentation by Adolfo. Take it away, sir.
All right. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to have this time to trouble or have thought and conversation with you all, seeing what you all would think about how we can incorporate an action item as in addition to the written statement that we have and have been reading. This is something. The action item is just something that I feel strongly towards having, as far as like something that we could be able to utilize as far as bringing some type of awareness to actual things that are within our community that can be brought for attention for those that feel the need of contributing in any way or form. So I kind of put roughly 2 examples of additions that could be incorporated. The example 1 and the example 2, just kind of examples of and ideas of how it could look like. And I know the first example makes it quite lengthy, but then again, it's not really about how lengthy it is, but it's just kind of, again, to bring in the awareness of how we're trying to move and how we're trying to present this forward to our community. And these examples primarily include Native American, First Nations, Indigenous folks, communities, organizations here within the Portland area. But as I consulted with some of my peers within the Native community, some of them had also mentioned that we could also incorporate actual community events that are happening within our school district, such as, the shoe drive that's coming up. soon. And then it's kind of like bringing things like that where folks can actually give back in some way or form, like volunteering, and those types of exercises that folks can give back and to our community and bring that awareness um, of kind of putting that action to it, and that's why it's called an action item. Yeah, so I don't know if you guys have any thoughts, ideas, suggestions, what you all think, or what example you guys like better, the one or the two.
My question was just going to be that where you called it out, where like there's specific organizations, but is there anything that's going on within our district, or within, Park Rose that we can, you know, give back or acknowledge and take an action of going and supporting? Um, and so like, how do we, like, of course, I want to support any organization, but I wanted to see like if we have organizations within, you know, our Park Rose community or even events that are happening at our schools that we can be a part of. And you're looking at um, potentially like when you say what was my question? Sorry. Uh, when you say like support like the fundraisers or like if they're having like a fundraiser
Mhm.
or some type of donation or something like that, that
Yeah.
we're making an action item that us individually are going to support the fundraiser or as a board, because I don't know if we can monetary, give money as a board to a specific organization. I don't think we could do that, but it's something that we're saying like we're going to commit to volunteering at this day, because there's an event that's happening. Is that what you're thinking?
Oh no, yeah. Thank you for bringing this for clarification. But the initial thought was just kind of like bringing this kind of like in a way of an announcement, right? As for not as far as like the board or the school board making the monetary donations. I mean, yeah, if we each individually or other staff are inclined to volunteer, then that's definitely something that can be done. But I just mostly was just trying to have this idea to be able to bring the situation or the needs to the broad community as awareness so that the community could be able to volunteer or take the action that they feel upon called to do so. Um, yeah, and then also, there are quite a few organizations. Well, I know one organization within our school district, and it's the Black Men in Training, and that's a great organization. And a lot of times, they're pretty close to Park Rose Coffee, and I've been there, and sometimes they have really great events, um, and then at times you do probably would need some type of assistance and support too. But it'd be something that as a school board, we would also need to kind of be kind of like on the lookout, or to kind of periodically update and change and add the action item that is going on currently or actively within, like, I guess, the month or within the quarter of the quarterly each year. That's kind of like my initial idea of kind of like how to move this idea. I don't know if that kind of helps clear up what you were thinking, Brenda.
It does. Thank you.
Mm.
If we were to have like an action item like this, that's like, an announcement of whatever thing is happening that quarter or month, who would be in charge of figuring out and like vetting whatever that thing is?
Yeah, that's another great concern too, because apparently would have to have somebody appointed to being able to add it, or I guess if any of us that are in the community, or all of us at all in general, if we know of anything or hear of anything, um, if we would be able to, um, I guess, like, and I don't want to add anything to Andrea's workload, but if we had like the information, then would be, oh, Andrea, this is what's going on. Would it be okay for you to add it on to the, just a little within the quotation marks there of the example to support, just kind of like given the information needed to be able to fulfill um, the activity or the support that's going on within the month.
Yeah,
I want, oh, sorry, you go.
I think what you're saying, Mariah, is like, how do we confirm that it's an event that we want to be sponsoring, that we want to be advertising, like
Mhm.
that it's a legit type event. And I don't know if like if the district can try to research that. Um, but I don't know what that would exactly look like. Um, so maybe you could I mean, maybe you could just keep giving us a list of ideas and we could try to vet those. Um,
Yeah,
and
well,
then as they get confirmed as legitimate things that we might want to advertise, we could add it to the agenda.
yeah, most definitely, and I think that also would come with, like if there is um, something that we would like to add as the action item, to also then whoever it may be, if it's myself or their board members, if we hear of this event, it's upon us to take it upon us to be able to gather all the needed information to make sure that it is something that is legitimate, and we have all the contact information, how someone can proceed to move forward with the actions, and then having all those details to be able to then bring it to either, if it's a board discussion, or bring it to Andrew's attention, so then that way it minimizes the legwork for Andrea. And so I guess, yeah, it would be that kind of process to still kind of figure out how to clear that all up.
Yeah, I think one, I just appreciate you putting forth the effort to do this and the sentiment. I think just after looking at it, I think what becomes kind of tricky is thinking about like just kind of like the social and political climate.
Mm,
And again, I agree with everything you're saying and your stance, but just thinking about maybe like just past incidents or situations we've dealt with, I think we got to be mindful of, you know, looking as that we support one community as opposed to a different one.
mm,
So thinking about like, as a board publicly, you know, committing to support Native American organizations every quarter, because then thinking about community, it comes questions, well, what about, you know, the Latino community? What about the Asian community? What about the Black community? And then, it starts to get into semantics. But I think what we could potentially do is, because, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's more so about being intentional with the acknowledgement instead of just reading it and just saying like, okay, you know, so and I can see how, one could, not saying you, but that, having the land acknowledgement is performative. So maybe like we change the language of saying like, I don't know, as a board, we continue to make efforts to educate ourselves about the Native American community and then list, various things on how to do that. And then like, just on the back end, if you will, then we have a conversation as a board, like, okay, once a quarter, we're going to go to NAIA to volunteer, just throwing out ideas. But again, I agree with the intention. I think just again, the world we live in now, where it becomes dangerous, is just that then now it becomes nitpicking. Well, why does the Park Road School Board go volunteer at Native American organizations and not, you know, call out a community partner like ERCO? Why don't they come here or why don't they come to this organization? So I think it's a matter of like maybe fine tuning the language and really working around like the legalities of donating things. But me personally, I'm with always with volunteering time and all of that. But again, I think like just adhering to you know rules or policies, if you will, of committing ourselves as a board to say that, okay, we're going to go volunteer for this specific community, because then, you know, we put ourselves in a pickle and then it becomes like, okay, well, why are you doing this for this community and not other ones? So,
No, yeah, yeah. Thank you for putting it in that perspective. But that's why I kind of left it as the action item because it was just kind of like a rotating, alternating placeholder, right? Um, and that's why. But yeah, but it's just the intention, like you said, of being able to bring that into awareness and being able to move forward with a small action item. And I'm not saying just small because it bringing attention or gravity of what type of action item it should be or what size, but just kind of naming it so that there is some type of follow through, right, in some kind of weird form. But yeah, I agree with you, Paul, to being able to just continue to bring clarification to the language that is inclusive and also able to carry forward this kind of momentum or this type of movement. Yeah.
thanks, Adolfo. And I also wanted to add, Adolfo, like in no way, shape, or form am I an expert on Native American or indigenous, you know, um, just their desires or whatever have you. And I think like this could be a great learning opportunity to bring, an individual or individuals from that community, to come educate us. So like, bring members of the community when, thinking about Indigenous Peoples Month,
Mhm.
you know, uh, or day, excuse me, and having them come in, around the time of that meeting and really talk about, the importance of the ancestral lands. And again, this is me just shooting from the hip, thinking about ideas, but I want to be mindful and acknowledge that again, I'm not an expert, but I think us using our platform to give, individuals from those communities, those respective communities, an opportunity to come educate us, and then we can go from there. So it's a situation where, that intentionality, and again, leaning away from being performative, but educating ourselves so we can take the best approaches and practices, to continue to learn, about, Native American and indigenous communities.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, I'm with it. I love learning and yeah, so
Adolfo, are there members of these organizations that you say are here in Northeast Portland that we could lean on when it comes to revising the language to make sure that we're taking uh, their perspective into account? Something that would mean something to them, since that's kind of who we're trying to speak to when we have the land acknowledgement.
Oh, most definitely, yeah.
That might be something worthwhile, just to make sure that it's something that isn't seen as performative, but carries with it more meaning, something that actually reaches to them.
Yes. So I don't know what what would be the next step that I guess to move forward from where we are right now. Like, would we schedule a follow up, or would we vote, or how, yeah, what? How do we move forward?
I mean, I
We
think
would add
Michael
it
might have some feedback to share. We could put on the retreat this topic.
I was just about to say that.
Well, thank you all for your thoughts and being open, um, and yeah, to this discussion.
And Andrea,
Yeah.
quick question regarding the retreat. Um, is it a possibility, and Adolfo, I'm not trying to give you a task or homework, but maybe having, an individual or individuals from indigenous communities like join us for a portion of the retreat to discuss this?
Yeah, sure, we can try if Adolfo wants to get me that contact info. And then if not August, it could be another time, right?
Is there a time frame that you need that information by, Andrea?
Uh,
Tomorrow. No, I'm just playing. I'm just playing.
whenever, yeah.
But like, what is it like? I mean,
So our retreat is on the 13th. I mean, in a month.
okay,
Is that
so within like 2, 3 weeks,
two,
perhaps.
3 weeks? Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Adolfo. Really appreciate you, man, just really making that heavy lift or light again, whatever it is to you. Appreciate that.
Did anyone have any policy questions or have trouble accessing the information?
No.
No.
And Chair Tabron, I don't see any public comments
All right.
and no action items.
All right. Future agenda items. Anyone have anything? Along with Adolfo, just the information on having individuals come joining us at the retreat.
None.
All righty. Correspondence or announcements. Wanted to let you all know that I will be getting a link to volunteer for the shoe challenge from Jeff. I know some of you expressed, and that's again on August 30th at the gym. I saw Jeff yesterday at a birthday party. I was like, hey man, I need that link. So he's gonna send me the link and then I will share it. And then also I am almost done and it will be done in a timely manner with the um evaluation. So that will be to you in time enough to discuss for it's the retreat, right, Andrea?
Yeah, you could discuss an executive session at the retreat or the business meeting or both.
Right on.
Um, yeah.
All righty. So upcoming board meetings, again, the August board retreat, Thursday, August 13th, 2026, 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. Middle School Media Center. Um, if you don't know where it is, then yeah, you probably should be on the board anymore. No, just kidding. So, with that being said, just appreciate you all. Great to see everyone. I hope you all are having a nice, safe, and cool summer. I will move to adjourn this meeting at 7:07 p.m.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See,
Bye.
thanks.
Bye.